All right, thank you for staying with us. It is a new dawn for Nigeria as another president has been chosen and will be sworn in come May the 29th of this year. Well, Asiwaju Tinubu, who scored the highest number of votes in the presidential election, accepted the mandate to serve Nigeria. In his speech, he stated that the youth are the greatest asset the country has, while stating that they will feel his regime in terms of good education, job opportunities, amongst others. He also noted that there will be education loans to students who may not be able to afford to go to school, and there will be no more strikes.
The youth, I address you first. Let me repeat that I hear you loud and clear. We pay attention, undivided attention to your education. We will be creative. Credit will be available. Education loan will be available. 4 years course will be 4 years course. No more strike. Your universities will have their autonomy to be able to upgrade your syllabuses and be creative. No more selling of handouts. They must be authors. They must write and create for the nation.
Well, joining us in the studio is a strategy and public affairs analyst, Dipo Oyewole. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the
here.
program.
Great morning. Great to see you.
Let's even begin with your assessment of the whole process.
Okay, well, then we had that conversation a couple of days ago before they announced the results. I mean, for me, I think I could have done better. And for me, I still maintain the fact that they need to justify the money they got from us, because I see no reason why they could have conducted an election that was, for the most part, free and fair, but quite controversial, because the major element of controversy in it always puts a dent in the reputation of the entire process and the aftermath of the process, which is saying that this particular person won the election, these other folks lost the election, and we don't need that kind of atmosphere in the country that we have right now. There's so much tension, there's so much frustration. People don't have access to cash, they don't have access to fuel, they don't have access to a lot of things, so we don't need that extra attention or that extra stress with what is going on with us. And I still maintain that after this entire process is done, that we need to audit the accounts of INEC. They need to tell us what they spent the money for. They really need to tell us. They need to tell Nigerians that, okay, this is what happened. And for them to also help us to put faith back in the system and in the institution. The places where they had controversies and all of that, for example, the places where they had overvoting while deploying the beavers, they should be able to have an internal audit of it and come out to tell Nigerians that this and this is what happened. Tribunal or no tribunal on the side, because in the end, you have to be a credible organization and institution to say you want to conduct credible elections. Because what we're talking about now isn't just about now, it's about the common elections to come. Either the general elections 2027 or the all-cycle elections that will come before them. So they need to understand that Nigerians need to have some faith in the system. We have had so much distrust in the system, and legitimately so, because of how our leaders in government, either appointed or elected, have chosen to conduct themselves. We cannot have a sensitive institution like INEC to now have that kind of reputation as well. It doesn't help our democracy and doesn't help our polity.
Well, as it is, when he, after winning, and he was giving his speech like we played earlier on, in his acceptance speech, he laid emphasis on the issue of education, you know, amongst the youth. I've heard you loud and clear, there'll be no more strikes, universities will have the autonomy, there'll be credit and loan, education loans, and so on. What do you interpret with that? Because a lot of people have said that for Nigeria to grow and develop, that education sector has to be a priority.
Yes, and we've had that conversation here severally as well, where we talked about how we need to overhaul the entire educational curriculum to start with. Either we are getting loans to go to school or not, but the curriculum in itself needs to be overhauled, the bottom to the very top, because I mean, we have conversations with supposed graduates every other week and try to hold a conversation with them, and it's really a problem. And I'm sure some people will say, oh, maybe it's a Gen Z thing. It's not a generational thing. It's mostly about the quality of education that they got. And the other side of it is also building this mantra in town where people say education is a scam. And sometimes it's difficult to fault it because you have folks who are still in higher institution and they have 3 older siblings who graduated between 5 to 7 years ago and they're still unemployed. They still don't know what is going on. They've submitted CVs everywhere. They've walked the streets of cities, had to move around different places, and then maybe had to resort to some petty trading. While all along, all they wanted to do was to practice what they went to study in school. So these are the issues. So it isn't just about overhauling the educational system. It's also ensuring that even when they leave school, that there are credible and tangible jobs for them to have done. And with regards to going to school without loan or credit and all of that, I would say that the president-elect exercised caution with that particular one, because the question is, how is it going to be funded? So it doesn't end up as one of those things that they say before they get into office, and then they get into office, and then you say, oh, okay, we didn't know. So I'd say...
Does our system even give room for that, knowing how challenging it is working with data in
exactly.
Nigeria?
So that was the second thing I was going to talk about. So aside from being able to fund it, how are you able to track who you gave what loan to? Because even the current system we have, even the loan companies today, I think it needs to have them in the room to understand how that dynamic works, where they have to resort to maybe very unscrupulous ways,
blackmailing
people's obituaries on social media, blackmailing people. I get calls every other week for people I have no idea who they are, asking me to call them to pay back their loans that I didn't know anything about. And so we don't have that system in place yet, especially with regards to harmonizing our data to know that this is this person, this is where this person is at this time. Person is a resident of this state, resident of this local government. We have no idea how to track all of that. So it is a bit of a risky thing to do, but I'm more concerned about the financing part of it, because with the field thing, now it seems like the entire subsidy has been removed officially, unofficially, and then the new administration comes in. The question then becomes, are you removing the subsidy or not?
Yes, he has said he's removing it.
So you're removing the subsidy. Where is that money going to be deployed? Is that the one you're channeling to student loans, or what other part of the country or societal needs are you moving it into? Are you moving some of it into power? So they need to run a lot of numbers with regards to this particular conversation, because making certain promises, especially where finance is expected as the core part of it, can be very, very sensitive. And I do not believe that the Nigerian youth, the Nigerian people, are interested in hearing any excuse any longer with regards to promises made and promises unkept, especially where it concerns the youth. You say you want to give us loans for our education. 100 days has passed, we didn't hear anything. First year has passed, we didn't hear anything. Second year, you're then telling us, okay, this is subsidy. You know, we are not making money. You know, we are not selling crude oil at this price. People don't want to hear excuses. So I'd say they'd be very cautious with these statements and run the numbers critically first to ensure that we can accommodate it. Now, is it a good idea? Yes, it is a good idea, but we must be able to afford it.
So what can we accommodate at this time that could give some buffer to students in this system that we run?
Okay, well, as it is, we should be able to see how, one, like I said, the educational system, overhaul the entire curriculum, ensure that the universities or higher institutions altogether, that they are well equipped, and the lecturers and teachers at the secondary school level and primary school level, that they are well trained. Let us, for now, work with what we have and ensure that the quality will increase. Now, it may not necessarily be at par with what we have in other climes, because that also involves funding, and we have to be realistic about it. because those other clients are the ones that we're trying to copy with the whole loans and all of that. And it always comes with a trade-off, which what I'm saying now is we cannot afford it at this time. But with what we have, I believe we can make it work and we can have a lot of things done. Overhaul the curriculum, ensure that the people who are the teachers, the lecturers, they are well trained, ensure that the environment of learning is conducive enough for learning. Secondary schools, primary schools, they have roofs, they have chairs, they have desks. The universities, the lecture halls aren't overcrowded. If you need to build more lecture halls and all of that, have it done and have a roadmap. But we must get very deliberate with the actions we are taking, especially where it concerns the youth. Because like he also acknowledged, which was what I was quite impressed with, that the youth played a huge role in this election and telling them that, okay, we heard you, I hear you, this is what we're going to do. But we must also make sure that when those promises are being made, there is every intention and the resources to make it happen. Because intention isn't just enough to keep a promise. You must have the resources also to keep the promise.
All right. Bola Tinubu, when he was governor, was credited to have had a very formidable team. And the template was maintained over time when it comes to putting a team together that know what to do and how to do building that kind of a network. What kind of a team are you seeing that he is going to put together?
Well, to be fair, I believe anyone that's been objective will give him some credit for that. I mean, that's one of the things he's mostly known for. And that was the thing, that was, excuse me, that was one of the things that he was able to sell us on with the 2015 election, bringing President Buhari in, where people said, okay, you know what, if you have Bola Tinubu on your team, then he can help you put a team together. And then a couple of years down the line, the president had the economic advisory team, and we're celebrating it everywhere. I remember I was on different platforms celebrating it, but I mean, we know what came of that, zero. So for that, putting the team together, I think that's not something he has a problem with. I believe he has a strong network of professionals and people who know what to do for time. And I think that he's also good with assigning tasks and being able to follow up with it. And I think there's always a consequence for not doing what you're supposed to do per time. So I believe that with regards to putting a team together, that shouldn't be a problem. But in the end, we are hopeful that he has more of a listening ear than the current president with regards to having advice with regards to his team, either it's in the economy or whatever part of our society or issues that affect our country.
So when you look at all he said with regards to the youth now, do you think it will give them a sense of inclusivity? Because what we know most of these youth are calling for is being part of the process and not being left behind, so to speak.
For now, no. What will determine if there's a buy-in will be his actions. And we won't have to wait till May 29 to see that happen. I mean, from now on, even though as a president can't start changing. So it will mostly be about the actions, because we've had enough talk in Nigeria. Either you're a youth or you're a toddler or you're an elderly person. We've had enough talk, we've had enough promises made, and nothing's come of it. So it isn't enough to just make promises or just say you're going to do this or that. Your actions.
What kind of actions are you expecting?
Okay, well, I mean, I know that he called for some form of reconciliation with the other political party candidates. That I believe at that level, he may be able to reach the youth as well. Because in the end, they seem to be the arrowhead of their own movement. Because either you like it or not, every political party is an exaggerated part of the movement. So they should be able to have the conversations with their followers and see how you can reach out to leaders at various levels, not just at your party level, maybe at high institution levels, at different organizations, civil society, and different platforms. You should be able to see how you can reach out either directly or by proxy. But it must be seen to come with open arms and clear intent, and not a quid pro quo, where we're saying, okay, you're trying to help us rebrand our image. And no, excuse me. It must be seen that we are trying to make this country work, and we're trying to work together. We're trying to include you in the system of government. We're trying to see how this is going to be done. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, yes, he needs to have maybe a certain percentage on his team, work in different levels. Of course, that's all good. But I believe on a larger scale, that may be symbolic, but it may not fully be effective, because in the end, he's not going to be the president of those youth on his team alone. He's going to be the president of the youth of every Nigerian, either home or abroad as well. So you must also see how you reach out to the youth in the diaspora as well. And takes me to the next point I intend to make, which is mostly around seeing how we can have a better reputation as a country. So our folks abroad can have it a lot easier. And we must be able to craft a very sound foreign policy. This is something that we have had lacking in our country for many, many years. I find it very embarrassing that we say we're the giant of Africa. I mean, during the course of these elections, we had a lot of African countries staying glued to our TV stations and wondering what is going on, because they know that whatever happens in Nigeria affects the entire continent. Yeah. But we do not carry ourselves that way. So we must have that sense of responsibility to say that what is our foreign policy? And when we're saying foreign policy, we don't necessarily mean the West, okay? Foreign policy should start from home. We must start with our neighbors. We must start with the people we share the continent with, if we're saying foreign policy. I believe that we should have some impactful steps with regards to how we relate with our neighbors. We have the AFCTA. How much has that been maximized? We're part of the ECOWAS. What has that really done for businesses, both in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Togo, in different locations? We have the AU. How effective is the AU with regards to issues of security, resolving conflict, seeing how we can increase relations with ourselves and do away with this Anglophone, Francophone mess that we have going on with us? I believe that Nigeria should be at the forefront of these kind of conversations. I will not show leadership, because we can't just say we are giants of Africa and then giants by mouth and not in action. So we must be able to do a lot about it. But also, to the second part of the foreign policy bit of it, we must see how productivity must return, and they are able to get answers to these questions. Then you can reverse engineer a solution, and then you will see a huge buying from the youth. That is something that I believe that they can get done, and they can get done right.
Yeah, the jackpot thing is where people are migrating out of the country is actually very prominent among young people. Now, go on the street and ask anyone, everybody wish they can just get off.
Even folks that know they can't afford it, but they're like, some miracle
should
happen.
In fact, we even see instances where people are going to borrow money to leave the country.
Yes.
Right? They don't care. Let me go there first. When I go there, somehow we'll work out the monies and send back. But, you know, and now, especially when you have some other more elderly people or even agencies providing monies for that purpose.
Yes.
And then when you're paying back with some level of interest.
Yes.
So it has become a business. And it's also encouraging a lot of people.
There's a major industry for that now.
Let's come back to the issues. As it is right now, it seems there is every aspect of the Nigerian life has a challenge. There is no area that will say, for this one, no, for this area, we got... Everywhere there's a challenge. So Nigerians have become kind of impatient with whoever becomes the president to begin to work on some of those things. What likely challenge do you see going forward for the president-elect, for the new president?
I believe not getting a lot of things done as quickly as people may want it. But I believe that can also be stemmed with effective communication. Because, firstly, we talked about him having a team, and I believe he's putting a team together right now, if he hasn't even put one together already. One of the things that will instill confidence, one of the things that will instill confidence in the hearts of Nigerians is if, maybe even before he's swearing in, we know who the members of his team will be. The people that their names will be sent to the National Assembly, we have proposed names, and we have an idea that, okay, you know what, these are the people that are to get this done. And on some level, we are able to see and know that some work is being done in this particular area, Of course, if you pick out 6 challenges that we have right now, you cannot have everything done in 4 years, not even in 8 years. But it must be seen that you are hard at work, and it must be communicated effectively, which is one of the issues that this current administration has. Now, with whatever amount they may have done, they believe they've done a lot. Nigeria believes that they've done little or next to nothing. One of the challenges they have is not communicating effectively with Nigerians. And this is one thing that the new administration must correct. Whatever you are doing, you must carry people along. And it mustn't just be for the purposes of PR or saying, oh, this is what we are doing, you know, don't say we are sleeping. This mustn't be for that purpose. It must be for the purpose of having a buy-in and carrying the Nigerian people along. And the communication must also be a two-way street. It shouldn't be you are talking to us or you are talking down at us. You should also create avenues where you are able to get feedback. And this is what Nigerians are saying. Because even in every business, you must understand the place of feedback. It is feedback that lets you know that what you're doing it well. You can improve on it. What you're doing it rubbishly. And you should get some training done with it or do it a lot better. So we must have that open line of communication, and it must be effective at every level.
All right, quickly, so what kind of, perhaps, education minister, for instance, do you foresee or would you expect the president-elect to have at this time with the promises he has made?
Well, someone with a proven track record in the educational sector. Now, the name doesn't come to mind for me readily right now, but somebody with a proven track record in the educational sector that they have been able to show that, okay, you know what, from this time to this time, they've been able to add this much value to the sector at whatever level that they've been, and ensure that they surround themselves with people who are also of like minds and are also competent, because in the end, competence should be at the heart of all these selections. It shouldn't just be about maybe certain people politically, which, to be fair, it is part of what the game is. I mean, everywhere in the world, that's part of what it is. But I believe that if there's competence at play, there won't be so much pushback with regards to who these folks are. As long as there's competence and we're getting results, I believe everybody will be fine with it.
All right, we'll have to wrap up the conversation here now. Strategy consultant, analyst Dipo Oyewole, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Ahead on TVC.